Chosen one, stop scrolling for just a moment, because this message may have found you at exactly the right time. There is something about your life that people cannot explain. They look at the way you carry yourself now. They see the wisdom in your words, the calmness in your presence, the strength behind your silence, and they wonder, who trained them? Who taught you to survive the seasons that were supposed to destroy you? Who taught you to keep believing when everything around you told you to give up? Who taught you to walk through storms without losing your faith? They are searching for an earthly explanation, but heaven knows the truth. God was preparing you in secret. While people thought you were forgotten, heaven was working behind the scenes. While they saw your isolation, God saw your preparation. While they saw your tears, God saw seeds being planted. While they saw another closed door, God saw protection from something you could not yet understand. Your hidden season was not empty. It was sacred. There were lessons God could only teach you when the crowd was gone. There were things He needed to remove from you before He could place something greater into your hands. There were battles that strengthened your faith, disappointments that sharpened your discernment, and moments of silence that taught you how to recognize God's voice. That is why the person standing today is not the same person who entered yesterday's storm. You were being shaped. You were being refined. You were being prepared. And now people are looking at the result without understanding the process. They see the strength, but they don't know the prayers behind it. They see the peace, but they don't know the battles behind it. They see the confidence, but they don't know how many times God had to remind you that you were never alone. Chosen one, this is your reminder. God has been training you for something you cannot fully see yet. So don't leave this message. Because the next 4 revelations may explain why your journey had to be different, and why heaven may be preparing to reveal the purpose behind everything you survived. Chosen one, there is a reason your journey has never looked like everyone else's. There is a reason you had to walk through certain seasons without the support you thought you needed. There is a reason some people disappeared when you needed them most, and there is a reason certain doors closed even when you prayed for them to open. What you called rejection, God may have been using as protection. What you called delay, God may have been using as preparation. And what you called loneliness may have been the very place where heaven began teaching you how to stand without depending on the applause of people. Think about how different you are today compared to who you were years ago. There was a version of you who needed everyone to understand you. You wanted people to recognize your heart, appreciate your effort, and acknowledge everything you were trying to accomplish. But after enough disappointment, something changed. You began realizing that not everyone deserves access to your heart. Not every voice deserves authority over your identity. Not every closed door deserves to be forced open. God was teaching you discernment. And sometimes God teaches through silence. There were moments when you prayed and received no immediate answer. You asked for direction, but the road remained unclear. You asked God to remove certain people, and eventually they walked away. You asked for a breakthrough, but instead you entered another season of waiting. At the time, it probably felt confusing. You may have even wondered whether heaven had gone silent. But heaven was not silent. God was working where your eyes could not see. While you were looking at what was missing, God was developing what was necessary. While you were asking, when will my situation change? God may have been asking, who must you become before you can carry what I am preparing? That question changes everything. Because sometimes the blessing is not the first thing God changes. Sometimes He changes you first. He develops patience before increasing responsibility. He develops wisdom before increasing influence. He develops character before opening a larger door. He teaches you how to handle small assignments before placing something greater into your hands. David had a hidden season before the throne. Joseph had a painful journey before his position of influence. Moses had years in the wilderness before returning to lead God's people. Their preparation was happening long before anyone could see the purpose. Your preparation may be happening right now. That is why you should never despise the hidden season. You may feel unseen, but God sees you. You may feel forgotten, but God has not forgotten you. You may feel like nothing is happening, but roots can grow in darkness. A seed does not become weak because it is buried. It is preparing to break through the surface. And perhaps that is what is happening inside you. God is strengthening your faith. God is refining your motives. God is removing distractions. God is teaching you patience. God is preparing your heart for an answer that requires a stronger version of you. So when someone looks at you later and asks, "Who trained you?" don't feel pressured to explain every chapter. You know the answer. God trained you in the places nobody applauded. He taught you through the storms. He strengthened you through the waiting. He guided you through uncertainty. And He remained with you through every moment you thought you were walking alone. The world may only see who you became. But heaven saw the entire process. And chosen one, never forget this, the season nobody understood may become the testimony everybody remembers. There was a season when it felt like heaven had hidden you from the world. You watched other people move forward while your own life seemed strangely quiet. You saw others receiving opportunities, recognition, relationships, and success while you were being pulled into a place of solitude. You may have asked God, "Why me? Why does my path have to be so different?" But what you could not see then was that God was doing some of His deepest work in the place where nobody could see you. Your hidden season was not a punishment. It was preparation. There are things God cannot build inside you while you are constantly surrounded by noise. There are lessons you will never hear when you are desperate for everyone's approval. Sometimes heaven allows you to step away from the crowd because God wants you to hear His voice without the opinions of everyone around you drowning it out. That is why some connections ended. That is why some friendships became distant. That is why certain doors refused to open. And that is why some people who promised they would always stay eventually disappeared. You thought you were losing people. But God may have been removing distractions. You thought you were being rejected. But heaven may have been redirecting you. You thought you were being delayed. But God may have been protecting the timing of your destiny. There is something powerful that happens when God takes you into a hidden place. He begins showing you who you really are when nobody is watching. When there is no audience, no applause, no validation, and no one around to tell you what to do, you begin discovering the strength God placed inside you. You learn how to pray when nobody is encouraging you. You learn how to keep believing when circumstances look impossible. You learn how to remain faithful when there is no immediate reward. You learn how to stand when everyone else has walked away. And slowly, something changes. You stop needing people to confirm what God already told you. You stop chasing doors God never opened. You stop begging people to recognize your value. You begin understanding that your worth was never determined by their opinion. That is when your presence changes. Not because you became perfect. Not because you suddenly became better than everyone else. But because your confidence started coming from somewhere deeper. It came from knowing that God had carried you through things you once thought would destroy you. Look at Joseph. Before the palace, there was a pit. Before the position, there was betrayal. Before the influence, there was imprisonment. The hidden years did not mean Joseph had been forgotten. They were part of the preparation. And perhaps your hidden years are preparing you too. Maybe you are currently in the chapter where nobody understands what God is doing. Maybe your progress feels invisible. Maybe you are wondering why heaven has not answered the prayer you have repeated so many times. But don't mistake silence for abandonment. God can be working in places you cannot see. Roots grow underground before fruit appears above the surface. And when the right season comes, what was developing privately can suddenly become visible. People may look at you and wonder where your wisdom came from. They may wonder why you are no longer easily shaken. They may wonder why you don't react like you used to. They may even ask, who trained you? But they did not witness the classroom. Your classroom was the hidden season. Your lessons came through faith, patience, loss, prayer, and perseverance. And your teacher never left you. God was there when nobody else was. He was there in the silence. He was there in the waiting. He was there when you cried. He was there when you wanted to quit. And He is still there now. So don't be afraid of being hidden. Sometimes heaven hides what it is preparing until the right moment to reveal it. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. And when God finally opens the door, you will understand why He needed to build you in private before allowing the world to see what He had placed inside you. Chosen one, there is something people may notice about you without being able to explain it. They remember the person you used to be, but when they encounter you now, they sense something different. Your reactions are different. Your priorities are different. Your silence means something different. You no longer feel the same need to prove yourself, explain yourself, or chase people who have already decided not to understand you. And that transformation can confuse those who knew you before. They may look at you and wonder, what happened to them? What they don't know is that God was working on you when they weren't watching. There were moments when you had to face yourself. There were nights when you had nobody to call. There were seasons when you had to make difficult decisions without knowing whether you were making the right one. There were moments when your faith was tested so deeply that you had to choose between trusting God and trusting your fear. Those moments changed you. Not overnight. Not magically. Little by little. God began removing the need for approval from your heart. He began teaching you that your identity cannot depend on people's opinions. He began showing you that not every relationship deserves to continue simply because it has existed for a long time. You started becoming more selective. You started protecting your peace. You started listening more carefully. You started praying before reacting. And eventually, people noticed. The same person who once reacted to every criticism may now remain silent. The same person who once chased every opportunity may now wait for God's timing. The same person who once begged people to stay may now understand that what God removes does not always need to be replaced. That is transformation. And real transformation does not always make you louder. Sometimes it makes you quieter. Sometimes it makes you more patient. Sometimes it makes you walk away without announcing why. Sometimes it makes you forgive without returning to the same situation. Sometimes it makes you stop explaining yourself to people who only listen so they can judge you. This is why your growth may feel mysterious to people from your past. They know your history, but they don't know everything God did in your heart. They remember your weakness, but they didn't witness your strengthening. They remember your mistakes, but they didn't see the lessons God brought out of them. They remember your lowest chapter, but they haven't read the pages that came afterward. And you don't have to force them to understand. Jesus never told you to convince everyone of your transformation. He called you to bear fruit. Your character can speak. Your patience can speak. Your wisdom can speak. Your peace can speak. Your life can become the evidence. So if someone asks, "Who trained you?" remember that your greatest lessons may have come when nobody was teaching you directly. God can teach through experience. God can teach through Scripture. God can teach through waiting. God can teach through consequences. God can teach through the people who leave. God can teach through the doors that close. And sometimes God teaches you by allowing you to discover that you are stronger than you thought, not because you are powerful on your own, but because His grace sustained you when your own strength was gone. That is the part people cannot see. They see the calm, but they don't know the storm. They see the confidence, but they don't know the prayers. They see the wisdom, but they don't know the lessons. They see the person standing today, but they don't know how many times God helped you get back up. So don't be embarrassed by your transformation. Don't return to an old version of yourself just because someone else is more comfortable with who you used to be. If God is changing you, let Him change you. If God is growing you, let Him grow you. If God is calling you into a new season, don't keep living like you belong to the old one. The people who knew you before may need time to understand you now. Give them that time. But don't shrink yourself to make their understanding easier. You are not required to remain the person you were simply because someone remembers you that way. God is still writing your story. And perhaps the greatest mystery isn't that you changed. The greatest mystery is how God took everything you thought would destroy you and used it to help shape the person you are becoming. Now listen carefully, because this is where the entire message comes together. When people look at you and ask, "Who trained you?" they are looking for an ordinary explanation. They want to believe there must be someone behind your strength, someone who taught you how to think, how to endure, how to remain calm, how to keep moving when life becomes difficult. But what they may never understand is that your greatest training happened in places where no certificate was given and no audience was present. God was teaching you. He was teaching you when you had to wait. He was teaching you when you had to start again. He was teaching you when people walked away. He was teaching you when the answer to your prayer did not come when you expected it. And perhaps the most important lesson was learning how to trust Him without having every detail explained. Faith does not always mean knowing what comes next. Sometimes faith means taking the next step because you know who is leading you. Think about everything you have already survived. There were moments when you genuinely thought you would not make it through. There were nights when your mind was exhausted and your heart was heavy. There were situations where you had no idea how things would work out. Yet somehow, you are still here. That is not something you should overlook. You made it through days you thought would break you. You survived seasons you thought would never end. You stood back up after moments that left you exhausted. And maybe you thought it was simply your own strength. But perhaps there was grace carrying you when you could no longer carry yourself. Perhaps God was giving you strength you did not know you had. Perhaps heaven was quietly protecting you from things you never even saw coming. That is why you should never be ashamed of your journey. Your past does not make you weak. It can become part of your testimony. The rejection taught you that your worth does not depend on acceptance. The waiting taught you patience. The closed doors taught you that God's plan is not always the same as your plan. The lonely seasons taught you that being alone does not mean being abandoned. And the battles taught you that you can trust God even when you cannot understand the battlefield. Now imagine the people who only see the finished version of you. They see someone more focused. Someone more peaceful. Someone who thinks before reacting. Someone who no longer needs constant validation. They may wonder where that strength came from. But they were not there when God was developing it. They did not hear the prayers. They did not witness the tears. They did not experience the private battles. They did not see the moments when you chose faith even though fear was screaming at you. So let them wonder. You do not have to reveal every detail of your journey. Some parts of your story belong between you and God. And remember this, being chosen does not mean being perfect. It does not mean you will never struggle again. It does not mean you will never feel afraid. It means you continue to surrender your life to God while He shapes you. It means you keep walking even when the road is unfamiliar. It means you allow God to use your experiences for something greater than yourself. So when someone asks, "Who trained you?" let your life answer, God trained your heart through the waiting. God strengthened your faith through the storms. God developed your wisdom through experience. God taught you patience through delay. God taught you discernment through disappointment. And God carried you when you thought you were walking alone. The world may not understand your journey, but you don't need the world to understand it. You only need to remain faithful to the one who has been with you from the beginning. Because the same God who prepared you in the hidden season can reveal the purpose of that preparation in the right season. And when that moment arrives, you will finally understand why you had to become the person you are today. Chosen one, before you leave this message, I want you to remember one final truth. There will come a time when people who once underestimated you will look at your life and wonder how you became the person you are today. They will remember the version of you that struggled. They will remember when you were overlooked. They will remember when you were walking through uncertainty. They will remember when you had almost nothing to show the world. And then they will see you standing in a completely different season. Stronger. Wiser. Calmer. More focused. More faithful. And they may ask the same question. Who trained them? But they will never know the full answer. Because they weren't there when God was building you in secret. They weren't there when you cried and still prayed. They weren't there when you were afraid and still moved forward. They weren't there when you wanted to quit but somehow found the strength to take another step. They weren't there when you had to surrender your plans and trust God's plans instead. They weren't there when heaven was shaping your character through seasons you didn't understand. But God was there. He saw every tear. He heard every prayer. He witnessed every battle. He knew every disappointment. And He never wasted a single moment of your story. So don't look at your past and only see pain. Look again. Maybe there was preparation hidden inside the pain. Maybe there was wisdom hidden inside the waiting. Maybe there was protection hidden inside the rejection. Maybe there was purpose hidden inside the delay. And maybe the very season you wanted God to remove was the season He used to prepare you for the person you are becoming. Chosen one, you don't need to chase revenge. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to make everyone understand you. You don't need to announce your transformation. Walk with God. Stay humble. Keep your heart clean. Keep praying. Keep learning. Keep moving forward. Because when God opens the right door, you won't need to convince anyone that you belong there. The fruit of your preparation will speak for you. Your character will speak. Your faith will speak. Your peace will speak. Your testimony will speak. And the people who once asked, "Who trained them?" may finally realize that what they are witnessing could never have been explained by credentials alone. God was preparing you. God was refining you. God was strengthening you. God was protecting you. And God is not finished with you yet. So if you are still in the hidden season, don't give up. If you're still waiting, don't lose faith. If you're still rebuilding, don't be ashamed. If you're still praying for the breakthrough, keep praying. The fact that you cannot see the whole picture does not mean God has stopped writing the story. Sometimes heaven works silently before it moves suddenly. Sometimes the longest preparation comes before the greatest responsibility. Sometimes the darkest valley comes immediately before the mountain reveals itself. And sometimes the person everyone counted out becomes the testimony nobody can deny. So lift your head, chosen one. Your past is not your prison. Your delay is not your defeat. Your hidden season is not your ending. And your struggles did not disqualify you. They helped prepare you. You are still becoming. You are still growing. You are still being shaped. And the God who carried you through everything behind you will be faithful to lead you into everything ahead of you. So when they ask, who trained you? Let your life answer. God did. He trained you in the wilderness. He strengthened you in the storm. He taught you in the silence. He protected you in the waiting. He refined you through the fire. And now He is preparing to reveal what He built in you when nobody was watching. Chosen one, this is not the end of your story. This is the moment the hidden preparation begins to make sense. Walk forward with faith. Walk forward with courage. Walk forward with God. Because what heaven has prepared for you does not require you to become someone else. It requires you to become everything God created you to be. And remember this forever. They may question your training. They may question your journey. They may question your strength. But they cannot erase what God has built inside you. Your story is still being written. Your purpose is still unfolding. Your testimony is still growing. And the chapter ahead may be the very chapter that makes every chapter behind you finally make sense. Stay faithful, chosen one. God is not finished.